What is going on, guys? The Brothers All Gaming with my review of Akame Got Killed episode 6, and holy crap, we got a major character death here. And this episode, it was definitely sad, but overall, I did enjoy it a lot because we got a pretty good fight, and even though we got a character's death, that does not mean this episode was bad in any way, because to me, this right here is probably the best episode we have gotten so far, because this right here is the first time we have seen Night Raid or members of Night Raid, really go all out. And we see now that even though they are fighting at their hardest, it just wasn't enough, and that right there, it did result in a character's death. But the episode itself, it starts off with Tatsumi and Leone, and we see now that right now they're at this job, and this job take place in the red light district. And you just see now that like Tatsumi, he is definitely a country boy because his reactions, they are pretty priceless. And even Leone, she's finding them, like rather cute. And we see now that right when the job was about to begin, we see Leone, transform for the first time. Well, I believe it's the first time we actually see it, because I really don't recall us seeing this line appearing behind her with like this fiery mane. But that right there was awesome to see. And so like once she changes, and because her body is now enhanced, we see now that like she picks up Tatsumi, which was definitely hilarious. And you just see her, like running along the rooftops, and she's like running past all these guards because she's like moving so fast they can't see her, even though they might hear for like a split second. And so eventually they run into this building, and we see now that they're kind of like in the attic. And when they look down, we see now like this purple fog. It is now taking up this room, and we see now that this fog here, it is actually a drug, and it actually making all of these girls, like kind of high. And so then we see their target. They're now walking in there, and there was like these two men wearing a suit, but their leader, it was this one guy that I believe was like wearing an eye patch. And so we see now that like all these girls, they were like from the slums, so really they were all poor. And so they got hooked on this drug, and the more they work, the more these guys, will supply them with it, so they were all, kind of like addicts. And we see now there was this one girl, she clearly had too much because we saw her kind of like spazzing out, and she was like really craving for more. And we see now that because she was so high, these men really couldn't find that much juice for her, and so they had wanted to take her out. And then you see one guy, just like punching her so hard, he actually knocks her out. And so because of that, we have Leone, she like recognizes who that girl was, and now knowing that it was her friend, and she is now just pissed off. And so eventually we have their targets. They go to this meeting, but they're like still in the same building, and we just have Leone and Tatsumi. They now crash down there. And so obviously, like these men, they see them as intruders, especially when Tatsumi and Leone came for their life. But when they were like charging at them, trying to kill them, it was just awesome the way how easily, they like took them all down. Because even when I came to their targets, you have Tatsumi like cutting off, like the top of a sun guy body, which was definitely, hilarious. But then you have Leone who like chokes the other one, and then we see like she punches him so hard that like she actually makes this hole in his like lower torso, and that right there was impressive. You definitely do not want to mess with her strength when she like in that transformed state, because she is pretty powerful. And so now that those two are like taken care of, we see now that they're walking, and I believe they're like either going back to the base or to a meeting point. But we have Tatsumi wondering what will happen, to those girls, because obviously they are drug addicts, and now that those two men are dead, they are definitely going to start feeling those effects because they can't get their supply anymore. But now we have Leone, like it's obvious that like she comes from the slums, because not only does she know a girl there, but she also knows this retired doctor as well. And pretty much what she's going to do, she will tell the doctor about what happened, and that doctor will help all of these females. And at first, she was saying that it was only because, it was only because somebody she knew was there. But obviously, Leone, she does have a pretty good heart. And we see now that like once again, like Tasumi had gave her this like very cute response about as long as there's hope or a little bit of hope, you're a good person and all that. And we see now that like Leone, she had licked his ear, and it was definitely funny to see the way that that he reacted. Because what Leone was doing, she recognizes that like Tatsumi, he's a pretty good guy. So if he grows up, into a fine grown man, then Leone was like claiming him or marking him because she's gonna make him his, and that right there was pretty funny to see. So after Leone had marked Tatsumi, we see now that they were still walking, but Tatsumi was also wondering if not Leone, if Mime and Sheele were alright, because they also had a job to do. And so then we go to them and we see now that even though they had a little bit of trouble here with their job, they still completed it, which was a good thing. And so we see now that while they're walking, they're actually being watched, and this character, you obviously know who it is because we saw her last week as well. And so eventually this girl, she actually got the drop on them because she was hiding her presence, unlike most of the other soldiers they have kind of faced so far. So this right here, she kind of caught them off guard because they did have their guard lowered, but luckily at first they didn't get hit by her. And so now we see this girl, Seryu, I believe that right there is how you say her name. Right now, she wants to bring evil to justice because she recognizes Sheele from her wanted poster because she was like carrying that on her. And so we see right away that like she also recognizes that Mime is a member of Night Raid as well because she also had an Imperial arm. So that right there, like calls Seryu to go after both of them. And so we see that when their fight starts out, we have Mime here, bringing out Pumpkin because she's not wasting time, and you just see her, firing at her. But we have Koro, who actually, grows much bigger, and we see now that that he took all those bullets, to protect Seryu, and his body was healing. Because he is an organism, an organism Imperial arm. Because those right there are very different. Unless you destroy their core, then they will always regenerate. Because we saw Koro, take so many hits repeatedly during the battle, but he was always regenerating. And we see at one point we have a Seryu here who actually gets him to grow these massive arms. And it did look kind of creepy because we have this little dog thing. At first we see it become more massive in size, but then we see it's its true strength, and we see now that it grew these arms that were pretty strong because we have it charging in there, and luckily Sheele was blocking those hits with her own Imperial arm, but she was saying that those hits, they were very heavy, so you can tell there was some power behind them. But Seryu here is also not someone to normally stay out of a battle and let Koro do everything, because we saw she had these Tonfa guns, and at first she knew that at a distance she really could get a good hit on them. So obviously that right there was kind of like a downside for her because her weapon just weren't that effective. But luckily, sadly at the end, it does kind of pay off though. And so now we see that that Mime here, she is pretty much going to take on Koro because we saw that after Seryu had blew this whistle to get the other guards, and now we have Koro being this massive form, she was definitely in a pinch. And so we see now that when she fired Pumpkin and shot out this massive laser at Koro, you would think that right there would do some serious damage, but because she didn't hit his core, it was already healing. But luckily, while Koro was distracted, we have Sheele in there. She's now rushing in, and we see her trying to fight Seryu. And their fight at first, it was pretty good. And we even see Sheele bring out this secret technique. And I forgot the exact name for it, but we saw that this metal, it was able to produce this blinding light, which is definitely a good trump card because that right there can catch an opponent off guard. And so we see now that while she was blinded, we have Sheele trying to cut her, And at first, Seryu here was doing a good job at like dodging it, because we saw for the most part, Sheele really couldn't touch her. But there was like this one scene where we have them in like this forest, and Seryu here made a mistake, and she like tripped on this rock. And when Sheele was actually going in, for a kill hit, we see now that like that Seryu here made the ultimate sacrifice, and she actually gave up her arms so that she wouldn't die, and that right there was crazy. But even though she did give up her arms, we see now that like she had this other surprise in store for Sheele as these guns came out. But even though when she shot it, we have Sheele blocking it with her weapon again. And so now because of that, Sheele here actually cuts off those guns, and the way she was screaming in pain, you could just tell that it hurt. But now we see that like Seryu, she knew that right now she was definitely in trouble because she was gonna die. So she had no choice but to bring out Koro's like trump card, which is called Berserker. And you just see this thing literally hulks up. It just get so massive and so strong, and it actually turns red. And so now we see that with his newfound strength, we see now that like it took Mime, and it was screaming, it was squeezing on her, and we see that like with his newfound strength, it like actually broke her arm with ease. And right before he could crush her, we have Sheele coming in there, like for the rescue, and she actually cuts off Koro's arm. So that right there definitely saved Mime. But sadly enough, we have Seryu here bringing out her own line secret weapon again, because her body had been modified, and she actually has a mouth gun, which is definitely weird. But we see her now that when she shoots Sheele, I'm guessing that like she must have hit her like in a spine or something, because we saw the bullet kind of like come into her back, and it came out through her chest. But I'm guessing when it first went in there, it hit her spine, because we actually heard Sheele saying that like she couldn't move. And so now because of that, we have Koro who got back up and came at her, and we see now that he easily like ripped her top half from her lower half. So obviously that right there was like kind of like the end for Sheele. And now because of that, we have Mime here, who like in a fit of rage was actually gonna like stay there and fight. Even though she had a broken arm and couldn't really fire her gun, she wanted to stay there and get revenge. But we have Sheele who like should be dead, but she had the will here to actually fight on, because we had all these guards now joining them, and obviously it wouldn't be good for both Mime and Sheele to be taken out here. So Sheele in the last few last few moments, she once again uses her secret technique, and we see now that like in her time of death, she was thinking about all the good times she had with Night Raid, and in like her final moments, we see her apologizing to Tatsumi because she can no longer hold him. And that right there, it just breaks your heart, man, because her death is like definitely sad. But now we see that like Seryu, she told Koro to like finish her off, and we see now that like he actually ate her. But luckily, like thanks to her final moments, Mime did get away. But sadly enough, like these Imperial arms, they're definitely valuable. But sadly enough, we see now that like Sheele got left behind. So now that means that the Imperial Army, now has hers. So I do wonder who will get it, because even though I read the manga, I did forget who ended up with it. But I'm pretty sure we'll find out soon. And so now eventually we have Mime here, who had went back to Night Raid. Oh, I also forgot that like after everything was done, and we see now that like Seryu was the victor, we see that like Koro here, he was still eating on Sheele. Like we saw her arm hanging out of his mouth, and that right there was definitely disturbing. But we have Seryu, who was being crazy here, because like she was saying to her father, who's no longer there, that she finally defeated evil. And we see like all the guards that were like around her, they were all kind of creeped out, and you could definitely tell that they were. But now we see that like after Mime told them, everybody here was like trying to keep their composure, but like Tatsumi kind of lost it, because he wanted to know who did it and where he could find them, because he definitely wanted to get revenge. And we see now that like Blue Hunt, Like he actually punched Tatsumi, and that right there knocks some sense because he was embarrassing himself because they like told him before that any of them could die doing this. That right there was like told to him when he first joined. So it's not like he could never expect for it to happen because he wanted to find Seryu, you know, like right then and there to get revenge. But obviously that right there would not be a good idea at all. And so now because of that, you know, Night Raid had lost a member and an Imperial arm, and then at the end we have Tatsumi who was at his friend's grave, and you should see like these ghost arms, you know, like wrapping around him as if Sheele was there, and that right there was definitely, you know, like pretty much the second half of the episode, you know, like after Sheele death and everything, it was just so very emotional, and those feels, you know, it did get to me. I'm not saying it like it made me cry or anything, but I definitely, you know, like I definitely felt them. And I also love how the anime is not like censored at all, because you see all the blood, you see the gore, and that right there is what I love about this series, because it is amazing when it comes to that. But yeah, like I said, emotional episode. Like we got so much story progression. We got a major character's death. I have to give it, you know, a 10 out of 10 because to me it was that freaking good. But of course, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And as always, please never forget to like the video and subscribe because it really helps me out. And you guys take it easy. And I will see you all next time.